That's enough of that. Welcome, everybody. We are into the weekend. I guess it's Sunday for some viewers, still Saturday night for others. Real science, science of sound. We have Drew, Julia, myself, BurnEye, and tonight we're going deep into alchemy and musical theory and so much more. Yeah, but we had quite the discussion ahead of time. Drew, do you want to maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. What's with the delay?
I think it's gone.
It was strange how that happens, right? Everything was working fine. We went live chatting, the three of us, like perfectly for a solid hour. Hit the live, and all of a sudden, I'm glitching, can't hear things, but we'll make
I'm
it
excited
through.
for this because I feel like this is some of the most important information that could benefit humanity, and that's what really I wanted to stress. Of like, look, it might take you a few times of like listening, come back to it, but it's so imperative that we study these practices and how blessed we are that there's somebody who is kind of a hub for a lot of this advanced ancient information, and that these times that we're heading into with technology and what's being implemented, and then how that's going to increase these next few years and beyond, and how important it's going to be to have this connection and to know these practices. It's going to come in handy. So and the fact that he's like teaching some of it, and so that's what I'm super excited about and what I feel is important.
Right?
This is some of the most important
Connecting the
information for
soul.
humanity.
Yeah, the soul, the spirit, the life
I thought you
force
said
back
skull.
to the collective consciousness, and like a higher spiritual development of humanity as a whole, right? Like that we're technologically advancing to this next dimensional level of demigod god, yet our soul, our spiritual, our conscious, moral level is what's been lacking. And that
Right.
what
And if
you're
you start to
saying,
advance too much technologically and not enough spiritually, there's problems every single time.
yeah, and that for each individual, connecting to your own eternal like soul, out of body spirit being is literally the most important journey of one's life, right?
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? I think if you look at what humans have been, I've been corresponding with Professor Brian Ferguson, and he's at Rutgers, and he just came out with a new book called Chimpanzees, War and History, and he's basically saying, look, humans did not have war before agriculture, and we've been around for over 200,000 years. And so my claim is like, well, look at our original human culture. If you want to learn what it means to really be human, it makes sense to just look at where we all came from, because we all came from the San Bushman tribe, and they spread out around the earth. I mean, the science is well documented now. And there's even a book called Sounding the Depths by a musicologist, PhD, and he actually traces the music.
I have to interject. Even
I'm sorry.
today,
Yeah,
there's the shaman tribes everywhere that still practice these, live these, and like are the most indigenous, like human, ancient, like traditions and societies still simultaneously existing alongside of us today at our supposed highest peaks. And then it's like, whenever I just laugh in general, looking back on ancient stuff, when they carbon date stuff, being like, oh, there was a fire, there was like arrowheads. It's like, well, yeah, you could literally carbon date that 10,000 years ago to today. If we're like wiped out, be like, look, there was nothing but tribal bushmen, and right, just but the fact that it goes back to the shaman and the shamanistic traditions, sorry, with which you speak.
I mean, I don't know if you want to watch the video. There's an interview with one of the basically the original spiritual healers were women, and then essentially if you look worldwide, basically the men say they had to steal the healing power from the women, but it was originally female. And if you look at biology, pretty much all in nature is female. I mean, males, we just provide a bit of DNA variety, but it's called parthenogenesis, where females basically, like, they don't need, it's most of life on Earth is bacteria, in the soil and stuff. But the thing is like the female energy, that's what the males have to learn to train in this stuff. That's what the video I have is about. And of course, if you're male, then, in our original human culture, all the males were required to do this spiritual training. It wasn't just like it
was a necessity.
Yeah, it was a necessity to prevent war and to make sure the culture was based on healing and love. And that's it's what amazes me is, as modern humans, we're cut off from the truth of our physiology, from our heart, love, energy. The male, especially with left brain dominance. There's a guy, Ian McGilchrist. He's like a well-known neuro whatever professor, psychiatrist or something. But he's saying, the right brain dominance is better, and music is right brain dominant. When you're listening to music with frequency, that's right brain dominant. And then what I trained in music from a young age in Minneapolis, and Minneapolis is famous for Prince and some other grunge bands and whatever, but Bob Dylan and that kind of stuff. But anyway, there's a deeper level of music. I train in like classical music, and you get into a trance level where it's serotonin. The serotonin builds up, and then your heart energy builds up. And I didn't know it. All my high school friends were like, "Oh, you're a stoner, right?" And because I was laughing all the time, and I was super happy. But I didn't know what they're talking about. I'm just like, no, it's just from music. And then I had to do like a piano concert by memory. And when you have to memorize classical music, first of all, it was like the scariest moment of my entire life, like right before I had to go out on stage, But anyway, so that's my background. And then I took quantum physics my first year of college, and the guy who taught me, he designed the quantum teleportation satellite system for NASA. And he taught us the Dirac dance, which is, he said every 0 point of space-time has this non-local superluminal connection of the future and the past together. And when he described this Dirac dance, he literally said my name out loud and started laughing at me because because I was the only one in class, or like my jaw was, because I realized it was the same secret of music that I had figured out on my own, Anyway, so then I just kept doing research. I ended up doing my master's thesis on this music idea, and then I decided to test it out. And I went through the African Studies department at the University of Minnesota, and the chair of the department was like, "Go for it." And I trained with a Chinese spiritual healer who had trained at Shaolin, and then he did 28 days of nonstop full lotus meditation with no sleep for 28 days. And when he finished, he levitated up 9 feet in full lotus meditation. And now
28 days, no sleep, and levitated.
When he got out of the cave, then he levitated up, because he's like, you got to have that level of purification, to really levitate like that. And then and the thing is like, if somebody just tells you that story, you're not going to believe it. But he works with the Mayo Clinic doctors. Like I respect, like Jeremy Reese saying, he doesn't believe in the paranormal or whatever. But the thing is, if you go and actually you take the classes and you experience the energy. Like the first class I took, I saw a poster on a telephone pole. What's that? Yeah, I was so skeptical. I called the number. I said, "Can I
initiate yourself in and experience and learn it and experience as you learn it to be able to accept its reality, right? It's because it's literally a deep brain transformation. Like as I'm talking to you now, I can feel my pineal gland in the center of my brain. I permanently changed who I am as a person, and I can no longer if I eat any food, it's like you cannot. If you look at our original human culture, they did not have salt. They didn't have any refined food at all. I mean, they would take honey sometimes, but no sugar. You know what I mean? Like it's a completely different. If you think of who we were as humans originally, you know what I mean? Like our diet was completely essentially.
he just ate like mainly grains and nuts, and then hunted some meat. And then what they would do is the males would have to go for a month every year, and they would fast and dance the whole month, and they'd have like one little liquid soup in the night, but they were off on their own as just the males, and that was to build up the female energy. And then they'd come, and that's how they could heal the females. But then sometimes one of the males would go off alone, and that's how the alchemy training started, is that when he went off alone, you weren't supposed to hoard the but once you did start hoarding the then you could like shape shift into a lion, because that's.
Oh yeah, I want to talk to you about that later, about lion-headed beings. You remind me. Like I have questions about that. All right, and there's stuff I want to tell you.
Well, I worked with a Burmese refugee. He was a lawyer in Burma, and he had to flee to Thailand because of the military regime in Burma. And he was in the UN refugee camp in Thailand, and then he went to the US. And I hooked up with him because I did a lot of activism, and so we co-founded the Minnesota Free Burma Coalition. So I got to be buddies with them. In Burma, it's traditionally a Buddhist culture. Even their language, Burmese, they have no personal pronouns in the language because the Buddhist culture, it's all impersonal, and they call it interdependent origination. So everything's just like flowing, and there's no like you or me or, so that's.
I'm gonna start calling Bernie that. I'm gonna call him Burn Eves.
But he showed me this piece of metal, like he had this chunk of metal. He pulled it out one day. He said he got this from a monk who had transmuted it. Like he said it had been like, I don't know what it was before, but he said this was, and because they practice alchemy in the traditional, they have pagodas there for alchemy, and so this is, it's all been Western.
Really fast.
Yeah, he actually built a pagoda.
Like they're singing bowls, the resonance that they do with those crazy crystal and metal bowls, the water bowl, and then also the different mercury amalgamations and stuff that it's like, so yeah, depending where you go, some even eat it. Like once they put a whole bunch of gold into it and stuff, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, so if we want to show the video, because that's more visual and people like visual stuff, since that's our medium, we have a visual medium, right? So I don't want to, I'm really good at just putting people to sleep because that's what I like to do, But should I try to present the video?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
What?
Need you to bring it back up. My computer is glitching nonstop. I don't know if my video or sound.
I'll do it. It's working.
Wait.
Okay.
Perfect.
Should I just start it? Discussing.
And then full screen it. If...
40年前，海登法師以一語鐵棒名震天下。40年後嘅今日，法師已經步入86歲高齡，仲能唔能夠再顯現呢一種絕技？
And he was the real source of Yoda for Star Trek. George Lucas went to Shaolin Monastery where Haidong was teaching. He wasn't officially a monk of Shaolin, but he taught there because of his high-level internal alchemy skills.
This is the real Yoda.
Forest and mountains. Now he had to be helped to be put into this one-finger handstand up against the wall, but after position, he held the position on his own. And the only way he could do that is through anti-gravity as levitation. And so this is demonstrating anti-gravity as the
so amazing.
Your cosmic chi, which is described in science as quantum force. It's a new type of force that I will be just demonstrating here with non-Western internal alchemy. I'm not going to be going into the science. Is it loud enough? Plenty of videos on the science details, but this is the best video actually demonstrating.
You ever see no arm shaking, no trembling?
Right?
He went to San Francisco and he challenged anybody to come on stage. It was when they were showing a kung fu movie, and he was being toured, shown the U.S. by some kung fu martial artists. And so all these big guys came on stage. Like this was in the 1960s, so there was like the big African American kung fu scene, and Haidong, he's a little guy, right? But they did not have a chance against him. And so there's other videos of him training where he sticks his finger through very thick cowhide and he just punctures a hole in it without any real effort. He just punctures the thick leather, and then he's throwing guys around and stuff. So I know there's a lot of fake qigong masters who get challenged and they get beat up and stuff. But there's no way you can fake this. He did not sleep for 60 years. He never slept. He meditated every night. And my own teacher, Chen Yilin, he said he met the teacher of Yan Shen. Now, Yan Shen is the most famous Qigong master of China, and one of his teachers was Haidong at Shaolin, and Yan Shen was also at Shaolin. So I don't know if Chen Yilin actually ever met Haidong. I've never asked him directly, so that would be fun to ask him at some point. But yeah, it was all based on meditation. He meditated all night long. He did not sleep, like I said, for 60 years. And he didn't like Shaolin, I don't think. That's why he wasn't an official monk, but because the communist government took over Shaolin and turned it more into like Disneyland, where they do the superficial training, but they don't do the serious meditation, internal alchemy training. So that's why you're not going to find anybody like this hardly with that kind of skill anymore. So he was like an ancient internal alchemy Taoist trained from, they call it virgin kung fu in Shaolin. It's called virgin because you have to start at a very young age and you have to maintain your celibacy. So he also was like, well, he's still virile, in his 80s, he's still virile stuff because he's the virgin kung fu. So that's the anti-gravity being demonstrated. Now here is pyrokinesis. This guy, Master Jiang, was a fellow who visited me. He showed up at the Spring Forest Qigong Center, and he then I was called by Qigong Master Jim Nance, and Jim Nance said this guy wanted to meet me, so Jim said he was fine, so he came out and stayed at my house for a few days. And we hung out, and at one time I was sitting on the couch. Well, anyway, my whole point is this guy had gone to China. He just got back from China. He had seen this Master Jiang doing pyrokinesis. But he said the reason he came back to Minnesota, he came to Minnesota because even though Master Jiang could demonstrate this ability, he lacked the love healing that Qigong Master Chen Yi.
You pause right there for a second.
Sure. So what happened with Master Jiang was that he was healing somebody.
The pyrokinesis aspect.
Yeah.
And healing flame. Mm-hmm. So he was healing someone and the flame appeared? Is this correct?
Well, I kind of explain it, but the thing is that okay, that's a good question. It's complicated. I can basically, the source of the healing is this, what they call the absolute void in Taoism, or the emptiness in Buddhism, but it's basically like information energy. You could call it God if you want, or the cosmic mother. I prefer the cosmic mother. Formless awareness. In other words, the laser energy that starts the fires, it originates from this energy that cannot be seen. It can only be listened to as through meditation. And there's a certain reason for that I discovered in my research. That because our modern culture 80% of our brain's energy is for vision. So as soon as we open our eyes, we are disconnecting from this original energy. That's why when they meditate, they have to close their eyes, and then they listen to the source of the sound through the meditation. And there's a certain secret to that. There's a certain reason why it works that I discovered. But essentially, that's what creates the laser energy, because biophotons are lasers. They're coherent light as lasers in our body. It's just they're normally very, very weak. But our brain has 25 watts for power. And so when you think of 2/3 of our brain power is for vision, that's about 17 watts. So as soon as we close our eyes and visualize light, we are immediately creating a 17-watt laser internally. But then it's a matter of building up the intensity. Now, where does the energy come from? When you listen to the source of the light, you can resonate with a non-local negative frequency that's actually a virtual photon energy. And that's why it's anti-gravity, like we just showed in the first video. If you build that up, you will literally have an anti-gravity force. And I've documented the science that discusses this. So if we go back to the video, I talk about it a little bit, but that's essentially where the healing aspect comes from. I lost you, BurnEye. Oh yeah.
Sorry, just on the phone.
I'm gonna go back to the video then. I just click it using this type of. It's like a laser, and I've experienced this laser directly from Qigong Master Chen Yilin, so I know this is real. And Chen Yilin's teacher at Shaolin also did pyrokinesis. One time, Chen Yilin's teacher overused his pyrokinesis. He shot it out of his eyes, and then he had to go back to his room and he was spitting up blood at the Shaolin monastery. And so Master Jiang, one time he was healing somebody and he overused his energy and he immediately keeled over. And that's how he died. And that happened, I don't know, just a few years after this video was made, I guess. And I was on a Taoist forum called the Dao Bums. And so there was people in China who were there when this happened, when Master Jiang overused his energy, and that the Wan Qi originates from the right side of the heart. And it's based on the Yang Qi. So the Yang Qi channel is the right side vagus nerve that goes to the right side of the heart. So it's well documented. If you overuse your right side vagus nerve, then you will have a heart attack and just die. And another thing that happens if you overuse your Wan Qi energy, you will experience a space-time vortex. And I experienced this when I had my intensive qigong training, and I did not know what this space-time vortex was. I experienced it. And I was like, I got to figure out what happened. Like, this was not just dizziness; it was literally a space-time vortex. So the source of this laser energy is actually a quantum negative entropy. That's a time-reversed negative frequency, and that's why it actually creates space-time from non-locality directly. And in non-Western philosophy, they call it non-dualism. Let me get some water real quick. Take a break, and we can take a break for me taking a break. So, I mean, obviously, this can be faked. But,
it relates to positive
laser through his hand. What's that?
To Dan Winter's Flame in the Mind work and research and
the conjugate
discussion.
This is not
phase conjugate.
It's not. Yeah, it's not phase conjugate. This is the great secret. This is why. See, you got to understand that all of Western science is based on what they call commutative geometry as symmetry. And so if you study science, there's all sorts of stuff on symmetry. There's supersymmetry. Thank you. Live shout out right on. So this is any kind of conjugate assumes a symmetric. You're already assuming a symmetric spacetime when you have a phase conjugate. So this is called a non-commutative phase. And what that means is whenever you make an external measurement of any type, you automatically have a shift in time inherently. Now, relativity is based on an external observation, but meditation is not an observation. See, that's the key. You're turning the light around directly and you're listening to the source of the light. So you're not relying on observation. And that's why you can have a superluminal resonance, and it's an asymmetric time. So it's eternally flowing. So as soon as you can have visions that are
the light, doesn't the eyeball literally emit biophotons? Yeah,
the eyeballs. Exactly.
And DNA, it emits it. And so like biophotonically. So I feel like tapping into this is like biophotonically another energy source.
Yeah, it's totally is like that's what I do is that after I meditate, this is what I love about meditation is that if somebody around me is tired, I will immediately get an internal tingling when I open my eyes, and I will feel the laser shooting out of my eyes. It's very weak because I don't store up the energy. It's a weak laser, but it's enough to, recharge somebody. And what's really interesting is the eyeballs pulsate at the ELF Schumann resonance. They pulsate it at the 8 hertz, even though it's laser light going out of the eyes. It's actually
really.
Yeah, and there's a secret to that because
I was completely unaware of that.
Yeah, I know. I discovered this just from my own experience because I'm like, what's going on? Like I could feel my eyeball. In fact, I had a guy visit the guy I mentioned in this segment. I mentioned a guy visiting me, right? And he had gone to see Master Jiang, and I started to tell the story. I didn't tell it in this video where we were sitting on the couch together, and he was a young guy, young, big, healthy guy. Like I don't know, maybe he's early 20s or something. And I'm sitting in full lotus because I just sit like I'm sitting in full lotus right now, but And all of a sudden he goes, "Your eyeballs are pulsating." I knew my eyeballs were pulsating. I could feel it because he was tired. See, he was tired, so my energy was automatically going into him. But I've never had anybody actually, vocalize that they can see my eyeballs pulsating, because he happened to be sitting right next to me and he wanted to study this stuff, so he wasn't afraid to.
For me, like when I go into a certain state of consciousness, then I'm able to do this thing with my eye, and you could see the pupil. Like I've recorded it because I've recorded it, and you could see it, like how it goes really big to really small, and how I'm able to adjust that. And like I literally look into light in a certain state, and that's how I get my visions. But the fact that you're, your eye emits the light as well. So there's like a two-way street there.
Yeah. And the Qigong master Jim Nance, he says I have a brain blockage because, see, if I was like you, where you just have visions, and remote viewing like that, I would not feel anything in my brain. I would just see light. But for me, I feel my pineal gland. I feel it. I feel a strong magnetic bliss in the middle of my brain. And that's actually a lower level because I'm still like, what happens with the Wanchi in Indian yoga, they call it Nirvikalpa Samadhi when you achieve this. And I did achieve it for like about a week. And your whole body pulsates, like literally the top of your skull opens up, what they call the fontanelle. Like when you're a baby, it's open, right? Like this skull is soft, you know? So literally the top of your skull will start pulsating and open up. And that's what you enter called bigu, where you can live without food. And I did that for 8 days. I had just a half a glass of water, like not each day, but the whole time, just a half a glass of water.
Dry fast? Wow, you were dry fasting for
I never
8
thought
days?
of it. Yeah, but I see that's the funny thing. Like somebody online recently said to me, like, how come you didn't drink more water? That's not healthy. But the thing is that, see, you got to realize that like physics has proven that all of matter is from light. No, I was just testing my music hypothesis, because the hypothesis of the music is that the source of reality is based on listening to this non-dualism, this formless awareness. And so what happened was this water was flowing down from the center of my brain, and it turns out they call it like Amrita, you know, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah. That's I've done
oh yeah, you
videos
have a
on it.
video on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Amrita. That's
And
right.
it's
It's like the the elixir of the gods, and that's why when you're
yeah.
describing this, I'm like cerebral spinal fluid, man.
Yeah, it's totally that's exactly it. And so at first I'm
The
like, well, there
soma.
yeah, and at first I'm like, well, there must be, because my skull was pulsating and it opened up. That's how you do astral travel. Like the Qigong master Chen Yilin, he even explained, you know, like in Tibetan yoga, he says they will actually stick like a little straw, you know, like a stalk of grass into somebody's skull just to make sure it's opened up. Like, you know, that's how for real this actually is. And then and I see what happened is that we went to the level 3 retreat. He was teaching us bigu fasting. He called it energy feasting. And since I was a nerd,
I like that.
yeah, and so I decided to fast ahead of time because I was like a nerd, you know, and I was doing this to finish my master's degree. So I'm meditating the whole time. My energies just kept increasing, and I had this really strong well, the other thing that happened was that all of a sudden I had this like orgasmic bliss just rain down from the top center of
like
my
the
skull.
kundalini, like the
Yeah.
chrism, the kundalini chrism rising.
And I was just like, whoa, that feels awesome. Like, and it rained down from the top center of my skull. And I'm like, this is really weird. And then later I read a book that described precisely that experience as being part of the
Well, it goes to the
process.
hypothalamus, like it goes up the spine, it goes to the hypothalamus, it stays dormant for 3 days. And then they actually call it honey, like when it drips down, like
Yeah, it's a sweet tasting. And the thing is that it turns out what they call the yang qi channels, they all focus on the top center of your skull. It's called the by way point in the Taoism, in the Chinese or whatever, Mandarin. I don't know so the yang qi is the cerebral spinal fluid. It's actually
So I have to take this extremely,
let's go back to the
extremely
video.
far out here, but just have to
yeah.
interject of Praveen Mohan's work out of like India, but he's I guess like also like through Cambodia stuff, Indonesia. But his most recent video, he was showing that all the carvings on these ancient Buddhist temples and Hindu temples, I think, they had elongated skulled figures, and that one of the main factors of these elongated skulled figures was every carving with them also had 2 holes behind, like, or above, like where the ears are, but like up higher in the skull. And then it's like on the Paracas skulls of Brian Forster's also like shown that like physically, biotomically, that the elongated skulls, the true ones, have these 2 holes, separate holes in the actual skulls that Homo sapiens definitely do not.
Well, another thing I noticed was
just the whole going through the brain and all these telekinesis things. That
actually what happens, the cerebral spinal fluid, it has to build up in your skull. And what happens is, as the pressure keeps building up and you think, like, I didn't know what it was. I just was practicing. And then it flows down the nasal cavity, you know, you have to keep the tongue against your roof of your mouth, and that activates the vagus nerve. And I have this in my hey Mike, how you doing? I have this in my training manual, how I have images of the skull. Oh, I should link to my training manual. Anyway, it's in that one. Do you have that other link I sent you? Could you repost it? I can't, because I can't access my, or maybe I could open up another tab, I suppose. Anyway, the pressure, so it flows down. Now, okay, here's the key point, is that when you meditate, you have to rotate your eyes. And when you rotate your eyes, see, in the Western, we think of everything as symmetric, right? But in alchemy, actually, like the left eye is yin qi, and then it's yang shen, and shen means spirit. And yang shen is actually like it's physical matter that's created, new physical matter. And then when you reach a high level of alchemy, that's called bilocation, where they call it the yang shen, which is you create a golden immortal body. That's the book, the website I linked to. They have a book that's the training manual I used, is they create the golden immortal body as the yang shen. And so the thing is that you have to rotate your eyes, and when you do that, you're getting like two different wavelengths of the biophotons. And when you do that,
what's the rhythm that they do it when they rotate them? Like, what is the?
I don't think because you're working with the biophotons, so it's not really the rhythm of your rotation.
It's just interesting, like how intuitively I do certain things, and then hearing like, oh my God, this is an ancient practice. Like, holy shit, good thing I never told anyone about it, because I was like, this is crazy. Like, what are you doing tonight, Julia? Like, oh, rotating my eyes.
Yeah, and so then the charge of it's like from the virtual photons, essentially. You're accessing the virtual photons when you do that eye rotation, and then that gets stored in the cerebral spinal fluid. And so then what happens is then you swallow that cerebral spinal fluid, because it's overflowing out of your nasal cavity, out of your sinus cavity, and you swallow it. When you swallow it down to your stomach, it creates this like really intense heat, and then you store it in the small intestines. It gets absorbed through the back wall of the stomach, and that's why it's called the second brain, because you have more neurons in your small intestine than you do in your heart.
Yes.
And so even if you even study our original human culture, they say that the strongest source of in the body is the small intestines. So it completely corroborates like all this stuff comes from our original human culture, which is over 200,000 years old. So, so the thing is they can time travel, they can do long distance healing. They don't have any war. So in my view, that's what you want. If you want to be humans, you want to have a peaceful, loving, healing culture that's where people are really happy, and
Well, I just feel like the cerebral spinal fluid and building that up and knowing how to direct that in your photons, and then with the intention of the remote healing, of sending that out. Like a really good tip, if you want to telepathically send messages, you focus on your heartbeat and you send it out the beats.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And you meditate, you think about the message you want to send, who you want to send it to, and that is a great tool.
Yeah, and the heart, for me, like as a male, like the only one of the remote healings I had, it was a tantra thing where this lady, I was bragging online how I had because one of the byproducts of my training was I noticed certain I called it orgasm at a distance, which is this is bizarre thing to say, but it's like, because you're building.
It's an energy-gasm. Energy-gasms are real. Can we talk about? Can we normalize energy-gasms? I will do a whole series on it. All right, because I want more people in the world practicing that. Energy-gasms.
It's so this
young female.
What's that?
It's a real thing. You don't even touch them. It's phenomenal.
You don't. It's
the Vegas nerve. We're live on Instagram for the first time. We cut out an hour, so we'll save that for the Rumble stream. Make sure you tune in.
Oh, because is this? I don't know what the I don't know what the free speech standards are on YouTube. I don't know.
Right? Neither do I, because that's the meta rules. We're also live on Facebook, and then we're live on X, which Elon lets stuff go these days. So we'll still be live on X. So if you want to hear about energy orgasm, listen on X or Rumble, and
well, I'll just say that I burned out my energy. I totally burned out my energy doing that all the time because I just sit in full lotus in public, and it just happened. I mean, what can I say? But anyway, but somebody online actually contacted me and said, yeah, because they said they had not been able to have that experience physically, with a male, and then they were very glad that whatever. So it was like a breakthrough experience for them to have that, from somebody. I know it's funny that. Anyway, so what else? What are we supposed to be talking about?
I always felt like, I won't say the word, but I always felt like an amateur and really immature of like every time I'm lucid dreaming, like what I do when I realize I'm lucid dreaming, how that's like a go-to. Like, really, Julia, of all the things you can do, lucid dreaming, like it's very 14-year-old boy of me, to do
actually, that's a good point, because for males, because part of this training, you have to maintain celibacy, right? And so as a male, that means you have to control your dreams.
And your dream? No, but you can't release, if you're practicing retention, which is very powerful, but you can't do it in your dreams either?
It's not even called retention. You got to understand that, celibacy starts with the mind. It starts with emptiness. So the word retention, it assumes you're creating something that you don't even want to create in the first place.
Well, I didn't want to say SEMEN, so I was
for you. No, I'm just saying, no, for you as a female, it's totally different. That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, here's what happens is, like in my training manual, I had to learn this.
Full moon in the dreams, or no full moon?
No, what's that? What did you just say about the dreams?
I was asking if, like, the rules are you have to be a nun within the dreams as well, or are you allowed to go to the brothel while...
You're saying like hermetics, macro, micro, like you have to practice spiritually and physically. So that would have to match, as above is below.
Okay, as a Westerner, when we hear the word celibacy, we think like some dried up old prune. But in fact, like if you read Master Nan Hua Chin, his book, he was the most famous Chan master in China. He was a bestseller. And he says, whatever you do, stay in full lotus, because that pain will turn into bliss. That's the male. For the males, the vagus nerve connects to the reproductive organ, just like for females. So the thing is that you have much better bliss, that way than a typical male would have. And so it's for a male, because just like a female, you can have it over and over and over. And it just, what happens is it opens up the heart. See, that's the whole secret, is you have to, for males, they keep pulling that energy down. But for Tantra, you have to train the female energy as a male. So you stay in the vagus nerve, and then that eventually opens up the heart. I have a video on that.
There's certain tantric things too I found interesting, that of tips of where they say, look for a girl who has an indentation right here and then right here. Because I read all of them. I'm like, dude, I have that. Like, but it's interesting of their advice to the monks that they gave of certain indications of what you seek.
I mean, the thing, like my teacher, the Chinese healer, he says he does not practice Tantra because it's based on the same biophoton signal, and what you're doing, the biophoton signal is what triggers the vagus nerve in the brain. So
it's creating like a habit of like building it up, stopping it, building it up and stopping it. So it's going to affect the flow of the chrism of the Kundalini energy. I could see that being a thing.
Well, what happens is after about 50 blissful experiences, the heart opens up, like mutually. What happens, because when you open up the heart, that activates the Wan Qi, and so you get this magnetic like non-local connection with the other person, and so it's real love. So you're directly connecting from lust to love, and it turns into just pure love. There's no more lust, and you don't have any physical connection. Like there's no need for any kind of physical connection, but except for what's happening to each other, internally. but the thing is that eventually you have to go to the formless. Like the Wan Qi is what like the cosmic mother. That's formless. Like in ancient Egypt, they have a saying called the cosmic mother will never be unveiled. And
what's your advice to people that are like, I want to open up my heart? What like tips and tricks they do? Like, what do you recommend?
Well, Tantra's a catalyst, but essentially what we don't understand, because as Westerners, we don't realize that our body, like the bioelectromagnetics is what powers the nerves of our body, and the Qi, like there's Yin Qi, there's Yang Qi, and then there's Wan Qi. So the Wan Qi is how you really recharge your energy. So like my teacher, he said he doesn't practice Tantra because you're taking in a low frequency. The Shen is like the light frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's always carries on the Wan Qi. Now the Wan Qi is actually the golden light of alchemy. So he says the secret of him recharging his energy is that he visualizes golden light in his elixir field, and the elixir field is behind the navel. And so when he sees that golden light behind the navel, then he can immediately, like he can keep healing people all the time just by seeing that golden light behind the navel. And that's his secret for recharging.
His navel?
Yep, recharging the Wan Qi.
Well, that's just really interesting because they say that the secretion of like the Christ oil in us, the chrism, that it is born in the sacral plexus, the sacred place where all 5 fused vertebrae of the spine meet. Like that like the Christ seed is born there, and then it begins before it begins its journey up the 33 vertebrae, and then amplified and where it meets the pituitary and the pineal, and spends 3 days in the hypothalamus, the tomb, but it's just that location. I was like, oh, that seems to be
in Taoist alchemy they call that point the fate, the gate of fate, and so it's called Ming Men. In Chinese, it's Ming Men, and so there's like a triangle there. If I have it in my training manual, but they'll show a triangle where you have essentially you have the 2 kidneys, and then you have the navel. Now, right in between the 2 kidneys and the navel is that's the point. It's physically in the small intestines, but like it's deep. Now, the reason it's deep in there is because of this golden. If you study, I mentioned this in the video. If we play the video some more, but I mentioned how the light in science, the element gold is a relativistic quantum. Should I start the video again, or?
Wait, but really quick though, back to what your teacher told you.
Yeah,
but
slow her down just to.
What's that? Oh no! What are you saying, Julie? What do you want to?
So he's saying it's lower by practicing Tantra, but is it because the intention behind it of why people are practicing Tantra?
Well, see, I'm speaking from my own experience because I had to get healed.
What sort of energy would he use to recharge instead?
Okay, let me try to explain it this way. Let's say, I build up my energy, right? I open up my third eye, right? I'm speaking from experience here. Like I saw ghosts and stuff. Like I definitely opened up my third eye. And my teacher even said I had an enlightenment experience. But then what happened is that they call it false fire of the heart in Taoist alchemy. It's called false fire in the heart. And I didn't realize this, but when essentially right as soon as you open your eyes, the yin qi goes up it's from the blood. It goes up the front channel and it goes out the eyes from the heart. And so it's really easy to fall in love like from that yin qi energy. Now it turns out that yin qi energy will activate the vagus nerve of females around you because they have this is female energy. So that's what that it's. See, people don't realize that we think of it of lust as based on physical interaction, like it has to be physically. This is automatic. This will just like trigger the vagus nerve. No, but see, for that to happen, it's going out of your pineal gland. It's going out of the third eye, out of your eyes. It doesn't even have to go out of your eyes because the third eye is omnidirectional. It can even be precognitive. You could have a precognitive vision of a encounter like this. But the thing is that so the energy will go out of the third eye, and then it's because it's going out of the third eye, it's a higher frequency. It's a higher frequency of biophoton energy because the chakras are all based on like the color of the chakras, you know? So what happens is that the desire is actually from the lower part of the body. So so if you keep having that experience over and over with somebody as Tantra, then you're purifying your energy because you don't have to eat because you can, like, the other person's energy. Yeah, the other person's energy is actually like life force energy, and that's pure. That's a pure source of energy than food. So if you keep living off each other's, like, essentially like lust, but you keep building it and building it up, and then it turns into real love after like 50 times or 100 or whatever. And then
is this why everyone intuitively is like looking for love? Where like we know, like they know that they can have this experience and that it's forgotten, and that's
it's
subconsciously seeking.
It's such a you want to have, everybody has lost this connection to real love because the problem is basically patriarchy. Because like I said, in our original culture, all the males have to train to learn how to do this, and so with the females, when the females sing, they sing all night, and then by singing, they're sending out their life force energy through the voice, and then the males have to dance all night, and by dancing, they're taking in that life force energy, and then they're transforming it into essentially like up into the skull, and then they shoot it like lasers, literally, back into the females, and then it just circles like that. It circles like that, and then.
Why you gaze into the loving eyes, right? After the tribal gathering, the music, the dance. Why would we always go out to the bar with the music and dance before?
I don't know. I don't do that.
This divine union of female and male coming together, we see so much of that. I mean, from the broken homes and. Now it's like hookup culture, swipe left. It's like, and when you sleep with someone, when you're intimate with someone, there's so much deeper things that are exchanged too. That's why sex magic is so powerful. Like there's other things being absorbed in exchange. So that intention and that forgotten practice of making, being intimate with a higher intention.
Yeah, and so what happens is that eventually, like they'll talk about this in modern science. They talk about it in terms of oxytocin, because oxytocin. What's interesting thing in biology is that female mammals have over twice as many oxytocin neural receptors in the chest, and that's what bonds the mother with the baby. Now you cannot, with all due respect, I mean, oxytocin neuroreceptors, that's if you're female, you're going to have twice as many as that. And that's, I'm sorry, that's biology, like biology is complicated. People don't really know about it. So the thing is that you build up that love, not just the chi or prana, if you want to call that. Like there's a difference between prana and shakti. So when you open up the heart, that's what activates like the shakti or the what they call wan chi, which is this cosmic. Essentially, you have the yin and yang chi combined together, and you get the wan chi. And that's I consider that to be impersonal because it's like comes from the future. Now, what like somebody of Chen Yi Lin's ability, he's a qigong grandmaster. When I fasted for a week, and he was sitting in full lotus, and I saw these lights form out of the top center of his skull,
head.
And they were shaped like humans.
Orbs.
No, they were they were shaped like humans. They were yellow lights shaped like humans, and they would form and they would break off and they would float out into the room, and they would float to each individual being healed. And that's how they were being healed. And nobody had any idea this was going on. And so I mentioned that to Qigong Master Jim Nance, and he was the teaching assistant of Chen Yi Lin. And so I met Jim Nance in 2000, and then he became a Qigong master in 2005. And so he had a really big heart awakening, deep meditation in 2012, and that's when I got back together. We started hanging out, like he befriended me, and I mentioned this. I said I saw what I saw, and he goes, he said that's a very rare ability because each of those spirits that are formed are individually what they call it in Taoism the Wan Shen, which is your original spirit. Like when you have an enlightenment experience, when you see the Wan Shen, which is who you are before you're born and after you're dead. It's like your soul manifesting. So in other words, when he meditates, he resonates with the emptiness through his heart, and that's what the Wan Chi is. And the Wan Chi automatically knows to create the soul energy of each person he's being healed, and that's how they're automatically healed of the deepest level of blockages, whatever they have in their body. And there was one guy there, and I was sitting in the back of the room, and this guy had this stench of rotting death, and I could barely stay in the same room with him. And I'm like, how come nobody else is noticing this? And then Chen Yulin said, Qigong masters can smell cancer, and it smells like rotting flesh. And then the guy said it was the beginning of the conference or whatever, and he's to the retreat, and he goes, I especially came here up from Arizona to get special healing. Now, as he got healed, like Chen Yi was in full lotus doing the healing, and the smell went away, the rotting flesh smell went away. And I'm thinking, great, that's awesome. And then we had a break. And this was in a retreat center in Western Minnesota. It was like the 1950s cabin thing. And I went back to my room, and I'm sitting in full lotus. And all of a sudden, the stench, the rotting flesh smell comes back. And then all of a sudden, I hear people having sex in the room next to me. And I realized that guy, as a Westerner, he has no idea. Like he got all this amazing spiritual healing energy, and that made him have also life force energy.
That's the first thing people want to do when they feel it. Is literally. Yeah.
So he changed the frequency of the healing back down to the life force frequency, which turned it back into solid form. And then I'm thinking, how can the woman be in the same bed with this guy when he smells like rotting flesh, and I can barely stand the smell through the wall? But you can't. I could see it's been proven now in quantum biology that smell is a non-local. Our sense of smell is actually non-local.
I always say if you want to time travel, do it through smell. Like you could smell something like that. You like through like when you were 2 years old, or 6 years old, a certain perfume. I'm like, you want to time? That's the fastest way to time travel right now.
Well, yeah, there's that. It's a proof
memory. I also have to state like how bears and animals with like the intense smell, like the stronger sensitive smells, like I can't even go into the detail of how advanced like the studies go on. It's just ridiculous, but it's a whole nother dimension of existence that literally takes your subconscious through time and memory space.
Well, then you start to look at, if you really start examining pheromones and then emitting that and what that means.
Well, anyway, do you want to go back to the video? I can show, because I don't know, it's up to you, but the thing about humans.
Absolutely.
This is the most important information for humanity. Of course, we want to hear it.
I'll play the video.
Most important information. That's why I have not been interrupting, but I have to take a moment to shout out John Self in the chat. Thank you, brother. And sorry for accidentally trying to give them a blue wrench, deleted them, had to reinstate them. Sorry about that.
Monk having this ability of pyrokinesis that he asked the Shaolin monk to heal his bone spurs on his spine, and when the Shaolin monk touched his bone spurs, it felt just like a laser. And I've personally experienced that from Qigong Master Chen Yulin, where he said he could read what percentage an organ was functioning. And this was in the year 2000, and so he said during the break people could ask him what percentage the organ was functioning, and I felt this heat just on my right kidney. So I went up during the break and I asked him what percentage my right kidney was functioning, and he was facing my front. And right when he looked at my right kidney, and I immediately felt this laser bliss just on my right kidney, only on my right kidney. And then he said, about 75%. And I just was stunned, and I just smiled and thanked him. And so this laser energy is the real deal. And that's just one video. There's many of John, but he's no longer alive because he overuses energy. So obviously this stuff is dangerous. But in order to have that ability, you have to do internal alchemy, which means you have to store up your energy. There's certain tricks to storing up your energy that I document in my free training manual. And I don't practice those tricks. I'm not so interested in storing up energy. Maybe down the line, maybe in the future, I will focus on storing up energy. Right now, I just haven't done that. I might start doing it. I'm just not sure. Sometimes I store up energy, but I overused my energy as well. Luckily, I'm still alive, so because I didn't overuse it at that intense level. I did experience a space-time vortex. Chen Yulin, he said he had the same thing where he overused his energy and had this dizziness. It's not normal dizziness. It's a space-time vortex. So this is the first Qigong master I experienced, and her name's FEP Chow. She just left her body last year, I experienced her in 1995. I saw a photo on a telephone pole. I was so skeptical. I called the number up. I asked for half off. I could hear her voice in the background. She said, okay, so it's $10. I brought my girlfriend, who was at St. Mary's University. She said she was going to fill the room with chi. And then after everybody left, I felt this strong magnetic force, like really strong between the palms of my hands, because she has like chi balls. And then the security guard wandered in and said, I'm just wondering what's going on here because the fuse got blown in the room behind you. And so that's like 12 amps. And she didn't say anything, and everybody was pretty much gone. Oh, they didn't even show that video. Anyway, so she was the real deal. So she pushes that whole line of people back, so it's kind of predictable. Now, this is from our original human culture. The DNA evidence proves that they're over 200,000 years old, and all modern humans come from this tribe, the San Bushmen. And the first tribe that split off from them was called the Pygmies, or that's what they're called colloquially. And they split off 220,000 years ago, as per the DNA evidence. And the irony is that they have the same music and same spiritual healing culture, and there's no warfare, and so every male is required to train as a spiritual healer. So this was the central core of our original human culture from over 200,000 years ago. And this training became esoteric and elitist when agriculture was developed, and then it got turned into like technological development instead of the original focus, which was spiritual healing. So this is what she's talking about. And the guy who did these interviews, he was a professor in Minnesota. His name's Brad Keeney, and he's the only outsider who's been accepted as a master healer, a spiritual healer in their culture. And he goes there every year, and he's got like 6 or 7 books on the San Bushmen. He calls it shaking medicine, because the males dance all night until their legs vibrate. And the reason why, that's in my training manual, and why that's the key focus of this training. So this is where all of yoga and qigong and all comes from, this San Bushman culture, and they have the most advanced language on the planet. There's a guy, Andrew Zimmern. He has a cooking show called Bizarre Planet or Bizarre World, and he goes to the San Bushman culture, and one of the healers puts his hand over Andrew Zimmern, and then
Can you pause it for a sec, Drew?
He explained in his book,
and
when the guy put his hand over.
Yes, sir.
Do you know much? Can you go into the details of their advanced ancient language and the acoustic aspects of it?
Sure. Their language has the most sounds of any human language, and not only the most sounds, but like the most different kinds of words. And it's the hardest, the most different kinds of letters and all that. I mean, it's the hardest language to speak, right? But it kind of makes sense because they're also the most genetically diverse of any humans on the planet. They have the greatest diversity of DNA. Now that's not saying a lot, because what happened is that there was a super volcano explosion 70,000 years ago, Mount Toba. And after that explosion, that super volcano explosion, humans were reduced to just a few thousand humans alive. And that was because of the San Bushmen. They lived in a part of Africa that was more
one of the main points in the project there.
What's that? Yeah, they had it's like,
for those that don't know, there's like major catastrophic decline of human population 70,000 years ago, where literally the human gene pool supposedly was down to a couple thousand. So, or was that just a time we were possibly tampered with? Just putting that out there, but or 70,000 years ago.
No, if you take a troop of chimpanzees, by a troop I'm meaning like a couple hundred chimpanzees, they will have more genetic diversity than all of humans on the planet. Just those 200 chimpanzees. So humans, we are
really
we're called.
Don't we share 90.6% of our DNA with shit?
Yeah, we share it. Yeah, we share it with them. That's a good point, but it's not. They have more diversity, besides. It's all about love. So, but the thing, okay, so the thing is, about their language. I'm glad you brought this up, because when they do their healing music, they deliberately use gibberish words for the songs of the healing. The healing songs deliberately have gibberish for the words. There's, so the point being that there's a secret to music that it's much deeper than speaking. Like, for example, telepathy. Actually, if we keep playing the video, it goes into that. It goes into that.
I get what you're saying with that, and it relates back to the Doukhobor, a Russian people that is half my ancestry, and that there's the legends and stories of how before they were persecuted by the Bolsheviks, that they would stay in their cathedrals and they would literally drag out each word to last hours long, so that their songs like went on for days upon days, and that it was like just the humming, the vibration, the sound connected resonance of it sort of thing, as opposed to verbalizing intent and spell with it, as right, essentially.
Yeah. In fact, actually, okay.
They harmonize the cells in the body, right?
Well, let's keep playing the video, and I think the next part will explain that kind of. Yeah, BurnEye had some computer issue, I think. I don't know. I'm gonna.
So right here is my newer computer that for some reason Google locked me out of StreamYard, and then to top it off, it now won't even connect to the internet, so I can't even like have a backup stream. Like, oh my goodness. Anyways, sorry for the technical difficulties tonight.
Over his heart. Suddenly, Andrew Zimmern's spirit left his body. He was hovering over his body. He could see his whole life flash before him, all these like poignant memories of, And then after when the guy took his hand away, it felt like an electric shock, like from a socket. And then his spirit went back inside his body. And then he asked the healer about it later, and the healer said, "Well, I just wanted to, get to know you, the real you." And so that just shows that this is the most advanced civilization on the planet, because they had no warfare and they could time travel and see, they had all these amazing abilities. Now, what happened is that they required the men to heal the women, and if you.
So you see what I'm saying right there in the video, where the guy. This is on. I have the quote. I put it on this video. If you read the comments section, I have the quote from Andrew Zimmern's book. And I don't know if you know, he's on cable TV a lot. He's like the Bizarre Planet, I think, or Bizarre World is his cooking show. So he went to this tribe, and so the shaman, when he put his hand on Andrew Zimmern's heart, Andrew Zimmern suddenly left his body. He was hovering over it, and all of a sudden he had this life review of all of his like important memories. And then the healer took his hand off Andrew's heart, and he felt this strong shock, and he went back into his body. And then afterwards, and he starts bursting out crying when that happened. And on the TV show, all you hear him say is, "I can't explain why, but I can't explain what happened." And so, but afterwards, he asked him why he did that, and the Bushman said, "I just wanted to get to know you better. I wanted to get to know the real you." In other words, he wasn't going to rely on language, on speaking. He was going to just see the guy's life directly.
He was telepath.
He will not. Yeah, this is beyond telepathy. This is like he was going to experience what. This is what the Qigong masters do. Also, they will literally like go back in time and then experience the source of somebody's blockage, and then be able to heal the blockage before it happens. And then that's how the person gets healed, is they go back in time and then actually reverse the blockage, like in time, like, change the past. In the spirit form, you could change the past, and then that's how they get healed in the present. All of a sudden they're healed. And if you tell the person that, they will freak out. So the Qigong masters, they won't tell people that's what they're doing, is that they actually are going back into the person's life in when the accident happened or whatever happened that caused the blockage, or anyway, I'll play the video. We lost BurnEye, so
they were against the energy is called Num, N/OM, and it's a female energy, and you're not allowed to hoard the Num. So in order to be an alchemist, you'd have to build up your energy and hoard it. So occasionally a man would go off on his own and he'd hoard up the Num, and when he did that, he could shapeshift into other physical beings, and that's why they would say, he would shapeshift into a lion. And that's hard for us to believe, but that's why it's really internal alchemy, because it includes transmutation of matter as well. And so they would be scared of this one man who would go off alone. It wouldn't necessarily, it happened occasionally where a man would go off on his own. But otherwise, they were against hoarding the Num, and they required all the men to, heal the women with the energy. The women would sing all night with hand clapping. The men would take in the energy from the women singing, then the men would dance while the women would sing, and the men would dance all night. And this would create Kia, which is a capital exclamation point, K-I-A.
So they're not just siphoning off of it completely.
So it's
right.
Nice.
Oops. Oh no. I messed up my.
Okay, we are. So this is what she's talking about. And the guy who did these interviews, he was a professor in Minnesota. His name.
Oh no!
And he goes to the San Bushman culture, and or against the energy is called num, n/om, and it's a female energy, and you're not allowed to hoard the num. So in order to be an alchemist, you'd have to build up your energy and hoard it. So occasionally a man would go off on his own and he'd hoard up the num, and when he did that, he could shapeshift into other physical beings, and that's why they would say, he would shapeshift into a lion. And that's hard for us to believe, but that's why it's really internal alchemy, because it includes transmutation of matter as well. And so they would be scared of this one man who would go off alone. It wouldn't necessarily, it happened occasionally where a man would go off on his own, but otherwise they were against hoarding the num, and they required all the men to, heal the women with the energy. The women would sing all night with hand clapping. The men would take in the energy from the women singing, then the men would dance while the women would sing, and then the men would dance all night. And this would create Kia, which is a capital exclamation point, KIA. It's like an electrical force that then shoots out of their eyes, and it's a laser. And then they store the energy in the small intestine. So it's exactly the same as yoga or qigong. It's over 200,000 years old. So it's quite amazing that as modern humans we've been cut off from this, the truth of our physiology and how it connects back to the truth of reality. That's this non-local future and the past overlapping. And it's the most advanced technology on the planet. It's what it means to be truly human. And so we got cut off from that. So here she is shaking the shaking medicine, and that's a way for it to be transmitted. Now that would be felt as an electrical force. The vibration has electricity to it. And I've experienced this from Qigong Master Jim Mance, who also happens to be African American. He spent 2 years traveling to over a dozen countries in Africa, initiating into shamanism. And he told me plenty of stories about that, but he did healing on me once where I felt this high frequency electrical vibration, like this vibration in certain parts of my body. And afterwards he asked me how I felt, and I said I felt lighter, because he literally did like an exorcism of the lower frequency spiritual information that had been stuck in my body that I had taken in, and still needed to get cleansed back into the emptiness. And to do that is internal alchemy. That's an alchemical process, because when you study the color gold in science, it's actually a relativistic quantum element, because of the outer shell of the electron is a 6D shell, and that requires it's
actually 6s.
It actually contracts in
You
wavelength because of
slow it down to regular speed, this part.
What's up? You want me to slow it down?
Yeah, do you mind just replaying that part about golds at regular speed? You've got my alchemical senses tingling.
The gold member. I love gold.
It contracts in wavelength, cleanse back into the emptiness. And to do that is internal alchemy. That's an alchemical process, because when you study the color gold in science, it's actually a relativistic quantum element, because of the outer shell of the electron is a 6D shell, and that requires
it's 6s.
It's a relativistic speed of the electron, and so it actually contracts in wavelength because of it ends up having a virtual photon frequency. So it's an outer shell because it's relativistic, but then it's.
Hey, let me explain that, because I didn't explain it well in the video, but it's based on the law of phase harmony from Louis de Broglie. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
okay,
please do go.
So this is something I mentioned when I first went on Alien Scientists, but essentially Louis de Broglie, he was one of the founders of quantum physics, and he was critiquing relativity, and he realized that in quantum physics, as the momentum goes towards the speed of light, as a particle goes towards the speed of light, the energy of the frequency goes up, because in quantum physics, frequency is directly proportional to momentum. But due to relativity, the time also gets bigger, which means the wavelength gets bigger. Now, basic music theory tells us that frequency is inverse to time. And so that's a paradox. It's a logical paradox. And he just logically deduced that for both relativity and quantum physics to be real, then there has to be a second time from the future that's guiding the particle as a superluminal phase, or what would be a virtual photon. And the interesting thing is that, so this is what you find in gold, is because the outer electron, it's at a relativistic speed. That's why it's in the outer shell, is it's going faster towards the speed of light. And so the wavelength is longer, but because it's relativistic, and it's also, the frequency is also going up. And so because of that contradiction, there has to be a virtual photon that is from the future that's then guiding the particle in order for both the frequency to go up, which means it actually contracts in closer towards the nucleus of the atom in gold. And so you need less energy for the transition between the 6s and the 5d electron in gold, because of this overlap of the future and the past of the electron shells and the outer. So that's a non-local secret of gold.
I love that.
It's kind of like not.
Gold is essentially the key to time travel due to the outer electron valence shell. And
well, the key, it's a key. I would say it's a key lesson, because what the
of time folding in on itself, essentially connecting it, photon forming from the future and the past simultaneously in between those two electrons. Is that essentially
right? And exactly, but because of that truth, it also means that all matter is actually essentially made of light. All matter is really made of photons. But
I always say I even made a meme. It says the universe is photonic.
Yeah, and there's, I mean,
how did that not like go galactic in trending? Like,
I know. I keep posting it too. I think I added it to my intro. Hopefully, I should just make that the intro, just that meme.
Well, so like, there's a guy, one of the guys I did not include in this video, his name's Wang Liping, and he's one of the more famous Taoist masters of China. And there's a biography about him called "Open the Dragon Gate," which is a really awesome biography, and about his
the best title ever. I want to read it just because it's called that.
Yeah, I know. And but there's a guy from Italy who went to train with this Wang Liping. And this guy's name's David Verdesi, and he was on record saying that he saw like Wang Liping demonstrated his ability to walk through a wall, because he wanted to show David Verdesi. He's like, this is what it means to achieve the Tao, and he just walked through the wall and then walked back.
And they make fun of it, and that's what the guy was doing in The Men Who Stare at Goats. Right, he was trying to acquire that and practice it.
Just pause from like our Western materialistic like sense of perspective, and then you look at all of the crazy ancient giant stone doors like just carved into like temples, mountains everywhere. That like, well, if you have all of these like epic monks and masters like floating around everywhere in these mountain tops that are potentially even hundreds, maybe even thousands years old. Some of them, who knows, like how the legends go. And once you reach that master level, if maybe they live inside, or the legends of other things, species, or civilizations within the mountains too fantasy, not so fantastical and more possible literal. After
it was the guy in Italy. Say that again.
Oh, this guy in Italy, he made his life devoted to going to China to study with these Taoist masters, and he studied with several different ones, and then he tried to bring more Westerners over there. And I was on this forum online that I did my own training, and then I went to the internet to try to seek out other people that had done similar training. And there was a forum, and that's how I found out about this guy, David Verdesi. And I had already read the book. David Verdesi, he's on YouTube too, but he's got a bit of a reputation because some people were like, well, he's in it just for the money, he's bringing people over there. But the thing is that Wang Liping, the Taoist master, he's completely legitimate. I mean, he's like, he works with the government like he's like an official Taoist teacher there, but he's a real
in China, the guy they made a national treasure.
Yeah, that's Wan Xin. Yeah.
And he like disappeared, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the misperception propaganda of the West, though, right? That they're like, oh, it's all communists. They oppose and like oppress all the spirituality, like open religion, and
well,
it's like no, actually,
it depends. Sometimes they like the Falun Gong. They do get their organs harvested. That is a real thing where they're like, well, they're really healthy. So that because organ transplant, the black market for organ transplants is a real thing.
Yeah, even in Seattle, it's huge.
Is it?
God, yeah.
That's they're probably getting them from the Falun Gong
all along the coast, all everywhere.
Right now.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I've been literally reading. I've been reading articles on Zero Hedge, as well as I guess it's essentially Kremlin propaganda, but RT.com of both in Ukraine as well as in the Gaza Strip, apparently organ harvesting. And yeah, no, it was on Zero Hedge, a big article of the Israeli one sect of their army or something was like doing mass amounts of like organ harvesting off of all like the slain human beings.
But what's interesting with like they can print organs now too, right?
What do they make? They make organs.
Yeah, I'm like, I like, why are we still seeing such a
right? As scary as transhumanism and the whole AI aspect are, I would rather go with 3D printing a new heart or liver than having to murder
successful transplants with
my fellow human beings for one, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's I don't know. Like I try to focus on the positive, but unfortunately, yeah, it's like the let's see, where was I trying to go?
Sorry, we completely took you. We guided you down a dark, like dark path. We're like
by saying human organ trafficking. All right, so wherever that fits into your story is where you left.
I have to rewind the tape in my brain and
the gold.
All right. Well, how about
the golden? Yeah, he walked through the wall. The golden light. The rainbow body, like in Tibetan yoga.
Yeah, we were talking
about let's try to keep it in fantasy land here.
Yes, rainbow body. Let's go with rainbow
unicorns,
body, the light body, because there's so much speak of in the 5D. Anyone that's in like New Age or this like essentially quantum existence where you're experiencing whether telepathy, deja vu, future events, very lucid dreamer, remote viewing, hitchhiker effects. All of these are essentially this quantum or consciousness over space-time, right? And that then it's called 5D. A lot of it, these experiencers will put themselves into this, and that is I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, got two-dimensional there.
But, what Chenyi Lin says, he's the guy I took classes from. He says because he was talking about Falun Gong, because Falun Gong is like one of the most famous Qigong cults in China or whatever. But anyway, he's like, well, that guy said he could, fly or levitate or whatever, and then they challenged him to do it and he couldn't do it. But the thing is that
well, first you have to learn how to do it loose in the lucid dream world, and then you can bring it back to the human reality after a great amount of personal and like the suffering and sacrifice, like the aspect you speak of, and your experiences with the food, fasting and sleep deprivation, right? Like I've also, like, when I've stayed up several days, like the most I've done was like a week and stuff, that it's this other, you start experiencing and seeing the spirit realm a little bit more, and the longer you're going with it, the more it materializes, I guess, is what it seems to be.
Yeah, he says if you want to know if somebody's a real master, just see how long they can sit in full lotus in ease. The Padmasana full lotus posture, and that. So I just try to sit in that all the time as much as possible. But it's different than to sit in it. Is different than meditating. Like Master Master Nan Hua Chin, he's the most famous Chan is what they call Zen in Japan. It comes from Chan in China. It actually originally was called Chan. But he makes fun of his monk students if they cannot sit in full lotus meditation for 1 week nonstop. He makes fun of them. He's like, that's not, you got to be able to sit for 1 week nonstop in full lotus meditation, to be a real monk. That's what he says, and he makes fun of Japan. He says they don't do enough full lotus, for their Zen, the whole Zen thing. He's like, they do not do enough full lotus meditation. You need that deep, deep.
Can you
body
describe for all the viewers what a full lotus meditation is?
It's
yoga position, correct?
you
let's
put
full
put one
size
leg
like
Mr.
that.
Through.
and you put one leg like that, so you have both legs up. Here, I'll try to. Let me get this.
Live yoga for everyone. The Zen master.
Can you see that?
Nice.
Just like reflect back in my own life, how many times I've put myself into this position and just sat in it for like hours and whatnot randomly.
Dude, I used to sit in the passenger seat of a car like that.
Yeah. That's great. So you guys are yogis. But there's different, like if you have one leg over the other. Yeah, like you're supposed to, for real meditation, for males, you're supposed to have the left leg on top and not the right leg on top. So it's like that's part of the whole non-commutative thing, is that it's always asymmetric. So there's always an asymmetric.
Wait, the female's supposed to have the right leg, the right foot on top of the left?
I can't vouch for females. Yeah. I don't know if females have to do anything.
The male's supposed to be left.
We're basically the hub of it all. I forgot. We're like this main vein of it.
Well, let me play the video. The video will show the female. Let me try that.
Higher frequency, and it absorbs the blue light.
It's 2023. I'm male. I cannot speak for a female. I am sorry.
But it's getting color gold. That's a secret alchemy. You're absorbing the virtual photons from the future.
So does she feel that in the future people here will continue doing this with each other?
Yes, it's happened before because it is a culture.
And does she feel good about the future, that this will stay alive?
It is for them.
About 3:33 a.m. Eastern time.
So all days.
Now as the rope makes us shake, are we making, through our shaking, the rope stronger?
The rope must be stronger. Pull you and you pull her.
But this makes the rope stronger.
Yes, it makes the rope stronger because always we have to do like that to make the rope stronger.
So as part of the doctor's, the shaman's purpose to make all the ropes strong, because that keeps everything connected together.
Yes, it's because all the doctors want their rope must be stronger.
Is it true that people who don't shake and don't dance, the ropes get weak and the ropes break?
Dance and shake.
That's because the people who don't know how to dance because they don't have a melody.
So the problems of people and the problems in the world because the ropes are weak and they break. There is two ways of the ropes. Some of people like this one. This rope is for them, and they cannot always use the another rope. All the
So what he's talking about with ropes is it's what we would consider to be astral lines or astral ropes, astral tubes.
Oh, what some
tether.
And she says that people need to have the arrows in their body, so they have to be charged.
Yeah, you tether
what in Taoism is called the lower
umbilical cord back. Yeah, tether.
The spiritual healers, the training for the males every couple of years, they go off for a month. The males go off alone. It's called Teshoma. And then the spiritual healers will charge up the younger males with these arrows that are like the energy that then is stored in their small intestines. That's where the num is stored. And so the astral lines, these ropes are different colors. They can see the ropes, and then they also go up and they go into what they call the cosmic ostrich egg, which is cracking ostrich egg, which is like the taiji of reality, the yin yang of the absolute void. And then she says that all the ropes are connected and it's all one rope. So that's the non-dualism, the philosophy. and the Westerners, we don't understand non-dualism, because non-dualism is neither inside nor outside. It's like, it means literally not two. So it's also formless. So it's based on listening. So that's where it all comes from. It's the song.
So,
if you go to the radical.
Have you ever heard of this like worldwide shamanistic language?
Like a written one or
a lot
spoken
of there's a legend. Yeah, it's both, I guess. It's essentially the original like symbols. Like, I think the Squatter Man might be one of them, but there's also like the water waves, and I think several of them are actually alchemy symbols as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, actually, I did hear a lady who that's her career.
Tried to.
There's a lady whose career is studying those original symbols that she found worldwide. I watched the video. I don't know. It was I can't remember the details. I was just thinking.
Yeah, I would want to know that. Send that to me. I'm
In
definitely
general, they're called petroglyphs, right? In general, they're labeled as these petroglyph drawings or symbols, but really what they are is a worldwide language of these symbols, which means so much more than just a letter, right? And it's like they're absolutely everywhere, and supposedly all of the like elders and shamans of the different tribes and indigenous around the world still like use it and like teach it to their initiated.
I actually have a good story about that. Actually, have you ever heard of the Kogi in the Andes, the Kogi tribe? They're the only intact pre-Columbian tribe. And my friend that I was mentioning before we went live, she was from the Andes, and her tribe was Wiwa. And when I met her, I had this VHS, because I'm that old, I had VHS of the Kogi, and she was really surprised. She's like, "How do you know about the Kogi?" Because she's Wiwa, and she thought they don't have any contact with the outside world because they're intact pre-Columbian, and they hide out in the Andes. Well, it turns out this one guy had gone in there and he wrote a book about this. It's called From the Heart of the World, and they made a documentary. They're like, modern people are destroying the planet, but what was really fascinating is they use gold for channeling. They use gold for astral travel. The gold for them is what they use for astral travel. And the other thing is that I was reading this book.
Say that part again. They use what for astral travel?
Gold. Like their use of gold.
They take it, like ingest it?
No. They don't ingest it. They just like, yeah, they just channel. They just hold it. Or
so here's something that I've put forward as an idea for a long time, is that the elites, rulers, these like kings, sovereigns, and children of God on their thrones in these like castles, and lots of times they're cathedrals, they have their like throne in that main area, and then they have their golden crowns, which are these elaborate golden conductor with lots of crystals and gemstones, essentially these amplifying resonating what the heck is it properly called, where whatever the heck they use, the crystal for radios, you have the crystal radio, right? So anyways, you basically coils solenoids, so wires of gold wrapped around your quartz, your diamonds, your rubies, your different ridiculous gemstones that they have on these amplifiers on their crown chakras, while they sit on these giant like golden frickin' stone thrones. Could it not be projecting, amplifying this psychic kinetic energy potentially? And that's why also you see the Egyptians covered completely in golden robes and stuff like that. And then they also had, why they had their the robes and the rugs was to charge the static electricity up to the gold as they walked and moved. And as you do that, you're just literally pulling energy from everywhere, as like a breeze even moved.
Well, I'll tell you how the Kogi, another interesting thing about South America is the DNA evidence now proves that there's a few tribes in the Amazon rainforest that are actually Australian Aboriginally, and they actually look Australian Aborigine, and their DNA is, they have like 3 or 4% Australian Aborigine. So they in other words, they now have proven that they're over 20,000 years old, that they got into the Amazon rainforest over 20,000 years ago. And so now how do the Kogi do their training? They call it being a mama. They literally say it's a cosmic female energy, and I think they call it the womb of the universe. And then what they do is they
Yama? What'd you call it?
Their name is a Mama, MAMA.
Okay.
And they that's what the males are called when they train to be a healer. And how they train is that when they are 9 years old, they get put into a cave for 9 years, and they can never leave that cave for 9 years. And they
What's
just
in
have
the
to
cave?
they just have to meditate the whole time with no light in there. And then they get brought whatever they need, but they get trained by the other shamans. And when they come out, that's how they can see that they can channel, they can do astral travel, and they
Oh my
can channel.
God. Yeah, I like ran for my gifts and abilities. I always say I wish a shaman would have came in my life at 14 and just been like, this is what you do, and just yoded me. Put me in a cave. I honestly now I wish they would have put me in a cave at 9. It would have been perfect.
And I'm trying to go back to what I was doing.
We're not even going to mention what they try to do you at 9 now, but anywho, sorry about that.
What's
the craziest thing you experienced while you were under this doing the Qigong training? Like
the Qigong. Well, I'll tell you
that you witnessed a master and that you yourself have achieved. Can you give us
that I've achieved in the master? Okay, I will tell you one experience I had. Soon after I did my fasting, my energy was the strongest it ever was, and I had various. I mentioned this space-time vortex I experienced, but that's a little hard to get a grasp on.
Really quick though, when did you start feel amazing? Like by day 3, with the increase? Because I always get asked that. So I was just like a quick recap of like.
Okay, so what happened is I started the fasting and meditating. I was meditating like 6 hours a day. I was 29 years old, and what happened was first my kidneys got really, really hot, and I'm like, that's interesting. And then my thymus gland got really, really hot. The thymus gland is at the heart, And then the center of my brain got really, really hot. And at the time, I didn't even know it was the pineal gland. I called it the pituitary gland because I didn't know physiology well enough. I'm just like, all I knew was the center of my brain was like burning hot. And then it got, after that, that's when my skull got soft and started pulsating, and the center of my hands were pulsating.
Like what day? Like when did you start to really see profound results?
That was near the end of the week. And then I went for the weekend, because I was meditating all the time. It wasn't like keeping a journal or anything, but I drank the half a glass of water, probably like on day 4 or something. And then I went on the weekend, I drove to the retreat, right? Because the level 3 retreat was on the weekend. And so when I got there, I already mentioned I saw the Qigong master creating the spirits out of the center of his head, and I smelled the cancer. And then I saw these spirits floating in from outside the room, and they were shaped like humans, and they were yellow light. And we were out in the woods in a retreat center, and there were like several humans that were yellow. They were hovering around the Qigong master while he was in full lotus meditating. And he said, I didn't say anything. I was in the back of the room, and he said, since somebody can see this, I will explain what it is. And you got to realize there was like over 100 people in the room, And he said that people who are dead as spirits, they regularly come to me to get healed. And he heals them. And when he heals them, he sends them into the emptiness, which I take to be like, really bright light that is impersonal, like the soul God level.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
and the fact that's an absolutely amazing story experience, and that what intrigues me is the yellow light that they were, and that yellow is this like where it is on the spectrum compared. It's on its way to infrared, but it's like it's closest to white light, which is purest light, but it's just like one little shade off, I think, if I'm understanding the visible light spectrum correct. And it's like you'd be leaving this one realm, entering into because all the other stories I usually hear, especially of like healing energies, they speak of blue or sometimes purple lights, especially, and flame that is you can get the blue plasma flame, I guess, or ultraviolet hydrogen plasma flame. It gives healing, this frequency or energy or radiation as well. There's lots of documentation of. So tying it all together, that also you're saying that it was spirits of after. So it's one. The demon realm is supposedly infrared, or the afterlife potentially, that it's like if you're yellow, you're just like one shade off of the white light. So it's like very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point, BurnEye. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I hadn't thought about a lot. But I know that from the Taoist alchemy training manual, they do say that the red light is basically like the demons or whatever. Like you have to clear it, and then to purify it is the blue light. That's the yang qi. But in order to
violet, right?
in order to heal it,
physics standard for everybody to understand, like physics and like light wavelengths, like our visible wavelength that humans see is just a tiny little portion of the overall energy and light out there, and that it ends, or it starts at infrared and ends at ultraviolet, or vice versa. But that's literally, as soon as you go into those two other depths, we no longer see. And what else can be existing in and around in all of that other energy?
Well, this is where see when you in non-Western philosophy, they call it non-dualism as formless awareness. You cannot see it. It's pure like information as awareness. Now the thing is that in Western science, you have to realize in non-commutativity, which is what I've been studying, is that the source of the time is actually pure frequency, is not wavelength. And so you have to understand that non-commutativity means the future and the past overlapping. So, for example, that Science of Sound video that you showed, that's in your playlist, right? I watched that lady has a music theory thing, and then she goes in, she mentions cesium. Cesium is the.
Are you talking about the sound alchemy?
Yeah, it's this lady. She's a Baconian.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everybody should watch that documentary. The Sound Alchemy
it's good, but she's not. I posted a message. She's not quite there yet, but it's good. But for example, she mentions cesium or cesium, or I think it's like cesium or something like that. But
cesium.
Yeah,
that's how Canadians say it, eh?
I'm sorry. I'm talking too much. Maybe we should watch the video.
Maybe we should watch.
No, I just wanted to bring up the dendritic. I wanted to bring up there's dendritic structures of photoreceptor cells in the developing retina, and the pineal organ resembles those cerebral spinal fluid contacting neurons. So the neurons been suggested to function as like deep brain photoreceptors. So when you were seeing that,
yeah, Qigong master Jim Nance, he told me he sees in 4 directions at the same time. Now, I was trying to. If you read Yogananda, have you ever read Autobiography? Okay, so Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a great book. Chun Yi-Lin, he said he actually read that book. He said it's the same as Qigong, and that's from the Kriya Yoga tradition. And they actually practice the same meditation that the alchemy book is based on. It, that the small universe is from music theory. It's I could go on and on, but the point being that the Yogananda, he has this experience where he describes being able to see in in all different directions at the same time. And so if you realize that reality is actually holographic, that literally means that each each location is interwoven with the direction and speed of everything else. And so for like every particle is interlap. Now, what even gets more interesting is that based on De Broglie's law of phase harmony, it's precognitive. And this is, and one of his proteges, and I talked to Jacques Safrati about this, Olivier Costa de Beauregard, was he's big on, and I brought this up because I had read his book also. But
yeah,
his whole, yeah, Olivier
no, that
Costa
was
de Beauregard.
absolutely great. I remember being when that happened. I've been meaning to actually take the clip of it and publish it. It's really good. It's like great old.
Really quick, you guys, you know what made my license plate?
Like,
I literally could have called my license plate, like I got a customized one, and I made it holographic.
No way. That's so cool. So, okay, so yeah, there's a book called The Holographic Universe. Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, and that was a popular. It's like the Qigong master Chen Yulin. He read that book. He said that is an accurate portrayal of what it's like to be a Qigong master. Now, in terms of the science, because that book relies on David Bohm and then Carl Prebram, and the science is not quite accurate, but that's a whole other thing, you know. So what was I going with this? Essentially, you have the future inside your body. You experience reality in the future before your external perceptions. This is my whole big point, is that when you meditate a lot, you will realize that
dreams that come happen. Yeah, 100%.
Precognitive dreams. Yeah, there's something called dream yoga in Tibetan training where, you know, you focus on your dreams, but then you start to realize that when you're being awake is another type of dreaming. And this is when you start having precognitive dreams and visions. Well, that becomes quite obvious, because there's a good book on precognitive dreams by a psychologist, a PhD psychologist who it's not a fractal. Sorry, I got to go into that too. But this is unfortunately the Western New Age thing is you know. Well, we could go back.
You
to
could
the video.
say it. You could say it's false. Go ahead, say it. Say it.
I don't. It's complicated to like.
Yeah,
you have to unlearn a lot of stuff, and we could watch the video.
I love that.
I know. We just don't want other people
misguided. Such a diplomatic answer. It's complicated.
They have more lectures. It goes more into the, you know, how the Sun Bushmen connected to the rest of humanity. And let's see if I can get my YouTube connection. Oh, I gotta reconnect the internet here. Okay. All right, so now we can move on to the next video. So Brad Keeney, he kind of makes fun of like the Qigong master. He said a Qigong master went to the Sun Bushmen. The Sun Bushmen just like wiped out the Qigong master. Like the energy was so powerful that the Qigong master couldn't, you know. So, but here we have Qigong master Chen Yulin. This is soon after he came to the U.S. What he did is he came here in '94, I think it was, and then he started doing Qigong healing, and then he went back to China. If I understand this correctly, he did a cave meditation for 28 days nonstop in full lotus with no sleep, and that was at Mount Qingchen. And then when he got out of that cave, he was in full lotus meditation. He levitated up 9 feet. So that's Qigong master Jim Nance. Before he was a Qigong master, he was the teaching assistant. And Jim Nance then befriended me and did healing on me and did other healing. So basically, this news story is just documenting the healing that people have experienced from Chen Yulin's practice. And after the story aired, then he was teaching through the community college, and it wasn't, you know, it was a challenge for Chen Yi. You know, Jim told me some stuff, but at any rate, after this story, you know, Chen Yi became very famous as far as people wanting to get healing and try out the class and learn the healing. And this person had
24 hours a day, July. When I became clear, and then ultimately, after Dr. Bill was a long transplant. In January 1993, Esther's son heard about Chu Lin and his class on something called Chinese breathing, or Qigong. She didn't want to go. She was sure it would not work.
Well, finally, he convinced me to go, and I went. I didn't go willingly, believe me. I took a class of Chinese breathing for 8 weeks. At the end of the 8 weeks, I didn't need all the oxygen that I had been maintaining to survive.
Are you listening to DMT?
8 weeks.
No medicine?
No medicine, just Chinese breathing.
This Chinese breathing, was that Qigong?
Yes.
Are they
Qigong. So,
what did you think?
What did I think? I was walking on air, you know.
Walking on air and walking without oxygen. She hasn't needed it now for 4 years. And more than that, Esther says Qigong not only gave her back her health, It changed her life.
I think I was a crabby. Can I say the word crabby? SOB?
You use the letters. You're not now.
No. And it's through Qigong.
You think it can make a difference for me?
Oh, it would make a difference for anyone. Many people, when they practice this exercise, they experience the calmness and the peace come back to their life.
So there's a psychological benefit as well as a physical benefit, you say?
Both at the same time.
In fact, Junie will...
So the she would have had to have a lung transplant. She was on oxygen 24 hours a day. She even had scar tissue that all went away. And then he kept on doing healing on her. He'd check up on her like once a year, just to make sure everything was still good. And then Chunni's been doing research. He's done like several the University of Minnesota has done research using his 5 elements training that I've been doing as a live stream. The Mayo Clinic did a study on him on his external chi healing, and the Dr. Ann Vincent called the results especially impressive. So he's
sounds almost like what would qualify as like a modern miracle, right? Like a miracle healing, essentially.
Actually, there's a book called Miracle Healing in China by FEP Chow. That was the first Qigong master I experienced. I had that really brief video for her, and she worked with the NIH, National Institute of Health. She's from Canada, I think, but she had her healing clinic in San Francisco. And I went out there in 1996 because after I experienced her she blew the fuse in the room behind her, and that's 12 amps, and I felt that really strong magnetic force. Yeah, and so I went out there. I went because I had a Chinese, my best friend in high school. His parents were from Taiwan, and he had moved out to San Francisco. And I moved out there, and I didn't have any money. I had like workers comp pay for my job, so I could just like afford the plane ticket. And I get out there. He's like, "Oh, Qigong, that's just for old people." And then he drove me up to Portland, Oregon, or whatever. And I just kept doing research. I never went to her clinic because I couldn't like pay for you got to pay to get a healing or whatever. But anyway, so she has a book called Miracle Healing from China. It's a great book. Should I go back to keep playing it?
Yeah.
Now this is John Chang. This is the most famous internal alchemy video.
For years, we followed around Java from his healing rounds. He didn't be allowed to film him, but he always refused, saying his powers were suffered from a kind of meditation with an ancient tradition of secrecy. It was only when my brother Lorne was suffering from a serious eye infection that he finally allowed us to film him in 1987. It was like anti-control that. I was really hard with electric shocks and couldn't control my movements before. And this is because you're special, you have a special sort of meditation every day. It's meditation. Meditation every day. Like you can touch me, like this. It's not okay. It's my brain. It's like this. For our sound recorders, it was also a shocker. He then took our newspaper outside and showed us how chi can also be used to set things on fire. When he heard we'd shown this footage in public, he was very upset and refused all our future efforts to contact him again. As the years passed, we sadly resigned ourselves to never seeing him again.
So they go on, they come back and test him, and they can't find. It turns out when you study, the outside of the body has a high resistance compared to the inside of the body. So when they put the voltage they try to read his voltage on the outside of his body. Well, he can control the resistance with his mind, so it wasn't picking it up without him transmitting the energy. And then, but he was able to light up an LED bulb. Now, why an LED bulb?
Sorry. Actually, I'm going to have to pause her there as we're getting to the 2-hour mark, and the algorithms love things under 2 hours, or they try to hide them. Also, it is, my goodness, 4 a.m. on the East Coast, 2 a.m.
I know, I was yawning. I was getting tired.
Right? And, well, now it's time for us to practice these lessons and into the lucid dreamland and connect to, the higher self and elevate your consciousness and your soul to a higher universal humanity. And, any last words?
Oh, you can't see it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's hit the sack, folks.
Thank you for this information. This really is like the most important information for humanity. Like it's You are a wealth of knowledge. This is so significant. I super appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it's
and
all
for
free. I
those
got all
that-
free research.
That's not even good English. I super appreciate you. Sorry for that horrendous. I'm tired.
Who said
Trying
that?
to mumble myself. No, I don't know. Maybe Julia's mumbling. Maybe I'm definitely mumbling. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I
I didn't say that.
Before we're fumbling, I should probably pull up your site and Julia's
Did I say that?
Julia's channel, Drew's channel. Void is Ying Yang. Is Drew's YouTube moniker? Or actually, why don't you just click on, since you have the screen up? Why don't you just click on your own link there on your channel to bring up your main channel on screen so people can see?
Okay. Let's see. How do I do that? Is it
just below the video on your name? Just click on your name below the YouTube video.
Okay.
That you have on screen.
Oh
nope.
Yes, I hear you. Oh, yeah. There you go.
There we go. You got her. So here, for anyone wanting, and I suggest, anyone interested in connecting to your eternal soul and higher consciousness, Drew, Void is Yin Yang. Say it twice. Void is Yin Yang on YouTube. Gives great lessons, early morning meditation practices, yoga, and ancient teachings and wisdom.
Yep. It's better to practice in silence. That's the real teacher, silence.
Dude, that's how I felt. Like half of my heart was like, I'm divided. Like half of my heart's like, don't tell anyone what you do or talk about it. Like, and the other half is like, people can benefit. Like, I do want to come out. And it's like, no, but don't. But silence, man, I feel like it's more profound. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's why Drew was saying, like, the master's like laughing, scoffing, making fun of anyone that can't stay in the position for 1 week meditating. Right, you have to reach that inner silence, stillness, and connectedness, and then really cosmonaut, or what's the right term? I forget. But astral project yourself through the realm and experience the universe and the higher creation, right?
Sure.
Essentially. All right, yeah. It's late. Love you all. We'll see you on the next one. Ta-ta. Thank you all for watching. And it's been Weekend at
Thanks, Julia.
Bernie's.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just BurnEye.